So for a lot of podcasts, I like to start off with a quiz because
Okay.
I love basically to see you like fail, basically. And I have kind of like a little bit of a one for this one, but I'm gonna save it for ratings and reviews.
Well, that doesn't sound very promising.
I basically want you to worry the whole podcast about how badly you're gonna do. So that'll be fun for me. But we can start off with a comment. We finally got a comment.
Don't we get occasional comments on our Twitter?
Very rarely, but this is on YouTube. And we never get comments on YouTube. Except for with what was that movie that was a cult favorite? Started with an A, I want to say. It was Robot Girl.
Oh, Alita Battle Angel?
There you go. Yep. We got some comments then.
Yeah, those were some
Those were some rough comments. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, I definitely recommend going and checking it out on YouTube because the comment section is wonderful. And by wonderful, I mean ridiculous. But for this one, this is the Let the Right One In podcast episode. And this is from Damasenka, I think the name is.
Sure.
It says, I really enjoyed listening to your review. It was very detailed and thoughtful. I've seen both versions and I read the book, and I completely agree with most of your points. That shocking scene in Swedish version was not as jarring for me as it obviously was for you. Maybe because I'm European and nudity doesn't necessarily mean sexuality. I thought it was very tastefully done. Blink and you miss it. Just a quick shot to let us know that when Ellie says I'm not a girl, it has double meaning. Then Oscar just shrugs it off and it's never spoken about, which in my opinion shows he really cares about Ellie and doesn't need an explanation or life story. He just accepts her as she is. Spoiler, if you were interested, author-written short sequel Let the Old Dreams Die, where we catch a glimpse of future regarding Oscar and Ellie through the eyes of a train conductor. Oscar becomes a vampire, which makes Ellie's motives more clear.
I'm totally down for a follow-up to the Swedish version. It was so much better than the American version.
So I think that is a like short story collection, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
I kind of like looked it up when I saw the comment there. I think it's something like that, which I would be totally interested in. But I'm interested that Oscar becomes a vampire because remember we said that in our episode.
We did, because otherwise it's just kind of creepy and sad that she's using and abusing him for her own personal gain.
Yes. But anyways, I really appreciated that comment. It made me excited. So if you guys want to leave us comments on anything, we will read them. And we're also being so excited that we'll like need to record. Like we'll be motivated. So
anyway, I'm Tyler.
I'm Shae.
And this is Cinematically Correct. And
one day late. Just getting that
This is kind of my fault. I did just start a new job and it's been a bit of a process.
Yeah, we're adjusting, but we're still here.
Failing at adjusting, but we're trying.
But we are starting off with a beer like we always do.
Yes. Before I get to the beer, this is the Ghost in the Darkness, my choice. And the beer is going to be Chomp Chomp. Now it's going to be a strawberry cheesecake beer, which
sounds delightful, actually.
I'm optimistic, but at the same time not optimistic.
Now the Chomp Chomp, is that a piece of cheese?
It's a cheesecake.
Oh, it's a cheesecake chomping on a strawberry.
Yeah.
Nice. Love it. That's a good crack.
It's not bad. Oh.
Ooh, actually, it smells like strawberry cheesecake.
I'll be damned if that's not a strawberry cheesecake beer.
Really? Does it taste good? You like it?
It tastes like a strawberry cheesecake, which is fine. I'm not really a cheesecake guy, but it's certainly better than some of them.
That's interesting.
I'll give it a 4.2.
Considering you don't like strawberry cheesecake, that's quite impressive.
I'll give it a 4. 4. It's the final answer.
All right. Do you have a brief synopsis?
Brief synopsis.
Brief synopsis. The movie is about Colonel Patterson, that goes, Irish gentleman that goes to Africa to build a railroad, and he has to hunt and track down some man-eating lions with a little bit of help.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's the movie.
So I'm pulling up the IMDb right now for the cast. This movie was in 1996, so a lot of these people I know like the main ones, but then beyond that, sorry, but no. So Remington is the top billed.
Yep.
Okay, so he's not in the movie until like halfway through. But that is played by Michael Douglas. Everybody knows Michael Douglas. Like, do we need to?
Yeah, you should know who Michael Douglas is. He's been in a lot of movies.
He's been in literally everything. With the top things that pop up on his IMDb, like most recent, I guess, are Wall Street, which I've not seen, Fatal Attraction, Behind the Candelabra, Basic Instinct,
He was
the
in
Kaminsky Method.
He was in Ant-Man, the Marvel universe.
Yes, he was. So yeah, he's in a ton of things. Do I like his character? No. The answer is no. He's a good actor. There's nothing wrong. Like, he was given a bad script. Frankly, is all it was. Like, he's a good actor. He played what he was supposed to play well. But we'll talk about why I'm not a fan.
We'll talk about that after we get into it a little bit more.
Val Kilmer plays Colonel Patterson. What do I know Val Kilmer from? Like, his name sounds so familiar, but like
he's Batman.
Yeah, Batman. I saw that when I was reading this, but
Top Gun, he was Iceman.
Was he in something funny?
I mean, possibly.
I don't know what
Maybe
it is.
Maybe you're thinking Ryan Reynolds and Van Wilder?
No. But his name sounds so familiar, like 90s, like nostalgia.
Oh, no,
but his face looked like nothing. I had nothing when I saw his face. I was like, I've heard his name, definitely.
Yeah, he was one of the guys from the 80s and 90s.
It feels like it was one of those people that I always heard about but never actually saw on screen. So that's weird. Tom Wilkinson plays Robert Beaumont. And the only reason I mention that, I don't know who he is. But I loved his character. Like, I love to hate him type character. Like, he was, I think, I'm hoping I'm not wrong.
Boss?
Yeah, he was the guy at the beginning of the movie who basically said, like, you're gonna hate me. And he followed through with his promise. He was just like the guy I love to hate. So
You're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
Yeah. So on IMDb it says he's in Michael Clayton, In the Bedroom, The Full Monty. Is that? Yeah, Grand Budapest Hotel, which we need to see because it's like a classic that I don't think either one of us have seen. Yeah. But yeah, do you know him from anything?
I mean, I've seen him in a lot of things. None are coming to mind.
And then the only other person I think we should mention, you can add in, is Emily Mortimer, because this is her on-screen debut. And she's actually quite famous. So she played the wife of Patterson. It says Helena Patterson, which I don't know if we ever got her first name actually in the movie.
Probably not.
But she is in a lot of things.
I mean, the thing I know her from is The Newsroom with Jeff Daniels.
For me, would be Mary Poppins. But it also says she's in Lars and the Real Girl, Match Point, a few other things that I've never heard of. But yeah, she's pretty well known now. Is there anybody else you wanted to mention?
I mean, most of the characters are fairly ancillary, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, and also it was the 90s, so like my brain does not go that far back. So, yeah, so we have a shorter podcast coming to you because I'm just going to come right out and say I was not a fan of this movie. Like, first of all, I wasn't a fan before I sat down to watch this movie, and then I was...
Yeah, we can blame me all you want for not getting this podcast done in time. It was definitely at least partial fault.
That I did not want to watch it.
Did not want to sit down and watch it. Didn't want to do anything related to this movie.
Now, where did you find this to start with?
So this actually came up from a random trailer from when I was researching a different podcast. It might have been Baby Driver for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay, yeah, I can see how it relates. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I saw the trailer. I was like, this is going to be terrible. And then I saw someone somewhere, either on TikTok, YouTube, somewhere, where they said it's an underrated movie because they used live action special effects rather than CGI, so it holds up better. And it's actually a very well respected movie, and a lot of people like it. So I was like, well, I'll give it a shot.
Now, do you want to know who podcaster has made this more well known nowadays?
No.
You don't want to know?
I do want to know, but I don't know who, and I don't know if I want to know.
You don't want to know. Joe Rogan.
Oh.
Yeah. So I read that and I was like, did he hear about it on the Joe Rogan podcast? Like, did you make me watch something because Joe Rogan recommended
for the record, do not watch or listen to anything Joe Rogan related because he's a moron.
Well, I just didn't know. Okay, so you made us watch a movie because of TikTok, so that's great.
For the record, Joe Rogan has a podcast where he has people talk about things that he clearly has no understanding of. And I'm just going to say that for the record. I don't like it at all.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So we can move on now. So firstly, how do you feel about making this choice from TikTok? Was it a good choice, bad choice?
Middling choice.
All right.
I'm lukewarm on the choice.
Oh, all right. So the first thing we have written down here is special effects, cinematography, and soundtrack. So one of the things that drew you to the movie was the special effects.
Yeah. So I was a very big fan of the special effects and the realism that goes into this movie, especially for something that's 20 years old now.
Realism, as in real lions.
Real lions, yes. So they use real lions, and there's very few instances of
Bongo and Caesar, to be exact.
Yes, Bongo and Caesar. I think that looks so much better on film than if they were to have built animatronic lions that don't quite move the right way, or CGI in the early days of the 90s. Like it would have been awful.
Now, without saying too much, because I know that you're going to compare the real thing, the real story. If you guys don't know, this is based on a true story. I know you're going to compare that in your history minute. So without saying too much, did it bother you that the lions they chose were not historically accurate? I guess I'll say that.
So you're referencing the fact that they did not have manes in real life.
Yes, that's what I'm referencing. Yes.
So it's a really odd thing for the male lions in this area of Africa to not have manes. And there are several theories for that. I think that it was the right choice to go with a regular male lion because that's what everyone thinks of. And if you saw a non-maned lion, you're gonna assume that's a female lion. That's just the normal.
You don't think that having the real lions from there would give it that more like creepy, like, oh my god, there's something wrong with this lion? I don't know if you'd
be able to train those lions as effectively.
Well, I'm sure that's why they made the choice, right? So those lions, from what I understand, are only from that area, Savo?
Only from that region. They theorize that they don't have manes for one of two reasons. It's either higher testosterone, which makes them more aggressive, or the fact that the ecosystem in the foliage has a lot of underbrush, and the mane would get in the way.
So evolution.
So over time, they lost the mane for those two reasons, likely, or some combination thereof.
Now, I don't know anything about science, but more testosterone would, to me, insinuate more mane, because doesn't the female lion have no manes?
Yes, but testosterone also leads to male pattern baldness, dear.
Oh, I mean, I can't see that because my husband does not have, a bald head.
More testosterone.
Gray mane, sure. Got it.
Steroids will often lead to baldness. So if you're taking steroids, which is basically testosterone, you'll lose your hair.
Gotcha. Interesting. Didn't know that lions and humans shared the same
I don't know
traits.
if that's the case. That's just a theory. Wow.
Okay, so cinematography, I just want to say, was gorgeous. Like, I didn't like the movie, but like if you wanted to just give me the shots of Africa and the landscapes and all of that, I would watch that.
Oh yeah, this is almost like a National Geographic or Planet Earth documentary type feel to the cinematography. It's stunning.
Yeah, you know that ride in Disney World I think it's called sailing or something like that, when you're in those chairs and you're flying over like beautiful, like, I feel like this would be perfect for that. Like, I would just want to just fly over the landscape. I don't want to be near the lions. I want to be up high, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like, like it just...
Or in the front of the train.
Or that,
best seat in the house.
Yeah, like it just like that really did add like a level to that where I was just like, okay, but like I can get down with this. Like, let's get rid of the story. Let's just watch the landscape.
And the soundtrack was spectacular as well.
It won an award, didn't it?
It won an Oscar. It was the best music for a film for the year.
Maybe that's how you found it, through Baby Driver, because you're looking for other movies with great soundtrack.
Maybe that's how they were connected, and I just randomly stumbled upon the trailer.
Maybe. So. That if you guys want to watch the trailer, you will not be impressed. So there's that.
No, not really.
But is there any other special effects in this movie that you wanted to bring up, or anything else?
I mean, I like the shots where they had the lions stalking people in the grass. It was a very good build up to build the suspense, and that's exactly how big cats and hunt in real life. And it's a eerie thing to think that they're going after people.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of terrifying. Not a fan.
So.
Okay, so one of the things I have in here is one of my biggest gripes, right, is the character development in this film.
So I think that this movie is going to break down in a lot of places. The character development is certainly one of them.
Yeah, so for me, in order for me to really enjoy a film most of the time, I really need to have a connection to a character. And while I guess you can say they gave you a connection to Patterson because you see his wife and child. I never really cared about him. I'm not going to lie. Like, I just didn't care. There was no...
It was very flat.
It was just on the surface.
Yeah, it was a very flat, no depth performance by every character in this movie. It was just across the board. There was no depth or character arc or anything that you actually care about.
Yeah, so I mean, at the beginning of the movie, there was Mahina and there was a guy that was there for theology, but I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
But I started to care about them a little bit. I kind of liked them. They were quirky. They were fun. And they died within like 10 minutes of that. Yeah. And I'm like, so you give me these characters that I start to feel something for, and then you're just like, well, they're dead. Like, you didn't give, like, can you give me someone I can care about for more than 10 minutes?
And then you're just left with all of the rest of them. And it's just like, oh, I guess.
Well, then I'm just like, well, I don't care if they die. At least save somebody I care about to the end. Like, if you have to kill off the main characters, like, make me care. Make me be worried. Make me be like, oh my God, I hope it wasn't him. Like, whatever. But no, like, then it's just like, Joe Schmo from the other end of the camp died. I'm like, sad? I know they're gonna die and, like, literally don't care. So, like, I need to care. Like, I need to feel bad. I need to be upset because that's what this is supposed to do.
I think that it's unfortunate that the writing wasn't better and the acting and the chemistry wasn't there. I don't feel like it was just kind of like, I'm reading lines. This is what I'm supposed to say next.
Well, right. Even Patterson and his wife, like, there was no chemistry there. Like, I mean, I cared a little bit when Patterson's wife showed up and he had that dream that, like, she was going to die.
Oh, yeah, that's a horrible dream. And that was very well shot, but it just did.
But I feel like I cared about that in a more, like, if that happened to me, that would be horrible. Not like a, oh my God, I can't believe they're dead. It was more like a, oh my God, if I put myself in those shoes, that would be awful. That's not how movies should go. No. Now, when you came into this, you were expecting more of like a kind of historical thing. So did that bother you as much as it bothered me?
I think my problem is that, well, the writing was not there. Also, the real life victims in the lens of the main protagonist for the real story, he doesn't really care because he's a white guy from England.
He cares that he's the hero, is what he
right.
cares about.
The indigenous people that have to suffer and the Indians that are imported to build the railway don't matter in his eyes. And like, it's just kind of like, well, they died, so we just sad, we move on.
So that's why we probably got what we got.
I think it was a combination of the two. I think it was a failure on the script writing, and it was just a failure on the source material.
That makes sense, because this is based mostly on Patterson's book, so That makes sense.
I wanted to say that I very much felt like the whole movie was an argument between the director and Michael Douglas.
Why is that?
Well, it just seems like Michael Douglas's character had no business being in this movie as much as he was.
So for anybody who hasn't seen this movie, Michael Douglas's character is Remington, who comes in halfway through and basically plays a guy who was a hunter.
Yeah.
Who traveled around the world and shows up here to kind of help Patterson get rid of the lions, essentially. And
he's not a real person. He's based off of big game hunters and other things that were part of that time period, but he was just kind of ham-fisted in there, and they couldn't find anyone to play him. So Michael Douglas, who was a producer of the movie, said, screw it, I'll do it. And then he just started putting himself in all of the scenes, making the director change things. And
now, where did you find, like, there was issues that you were like, oh, I wish that hadn't happened that way when it comes to Michael Douglas?
Every single part of his life, like, it's, my God, it's always about me. Whenever he's on screen, it screams, look at me, look at me. I'm important, I'm important.
Now, what did you feel about the scenes where he was interacting with people from Africa, like the other tribe? I don't remember the name, but things like that. Like, the
Maasai?
Did you find that cunning, or did you find that kind of cringy?
I mean, so the Maasai warriors that he shows up with, those are traditional Maasai tribesmen.
Yeah.
So that is on point in terms of accuracy. I would have been fine if they had left him out of it and kept the Messiahs stopping by to help out. Because
so that's kind of how I felt. Like, so knowing that he was not real, I kind of felt like, why couldn't they show that the people of Africa that helped without a white man having to direct them and teach them and show them the way. Because that's how they made it seem. Like they had to rally them and he had to kind of like direct what they were supposed to do. And it just felt like, I don't know, not
it's
right
just
to me.
Added middleman that didn't have any business being there involved in the movie. Like you're an unnecessary character. You being cut from this movie would probably make the movie go better.
Right. Now, did you like the choice that they made of what his character was?
I mean, it's an interesting backstory that he's a Confederate soldier that is on the run after the Civil War destroyed his family. And
well, they don't actually say that, though. I don't remember how they worded it, but it was like he was a hunter who lost his land.
The two tribes went to war, and his tribe lost, and he had to leave. Right,
but basically saying he was Confederate.
Right, they said it without saying it directly, and it was like, I mean, okay, and like that wasn't an uncommon thing after the 1860s for Confederates to have gone to Mexico or escaped the country just because they were afraid of being persecuted.
Right. Now, do you think, given what we've seen of Patterson and how he's written the story, that it would have bothered him in any way to have had basically some other dude having to come in and help him when that's not actually accurate?
Oh no, he would be rolling over in his grave if he saw this movie. Like, he's absolutely out of his mind if he would have known about this movie.
So I mean, we did watch a video. Why can't I remember? Movie buffs, right?
History buffs.
There we go. And they said that actually didn't bother them because it was a like conglomeration of a bunch of different people that he had met. Which I thought was interesting because why couldn't we just have a whole bunch of different people? Like, why did we
have a different conglomeration that is a different actor and a different backstory? Like, that actually makes sense for what's going on. Have it be a friend of Patterson's or just some other person that's related to the British rail system. Or
I would have even been okay with the boss that ends up saying that you're gonna hate him, come and help out or something like that.
Which is something that's
what
not,
the villains always do.
Not something so ham-fisted in there.
I agree
think
with you.
Is my problem. And I think for me that's where this movie breaks down is Michael Douglas being a part of it. Really.
I didn't realize he was a producer, so that kind of puts a whole nother spin on it, honestly.
Yeah, and he just kind of forced himself into this movie, and I think that comes through, and that's what the main downfall is for me.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something you genuinely didn't like about this movie. Yeah. I have one more thing I want to talk about, but before I do, I think that it's really difficult to enjoy movies like this when it's literally an adventure movie with literal no adventure. So for me, I'm not really into hunting. I know that's shocking, but I'm not. And but I am into true stories, and I usually can be okay with almost any topic of a true story. But this one, it felt like it was trying to be this big like adventure thing where you watch this hero kind of come through and save the day, but there was like none of that. Like, he was a bad hunter. The things that he was able to accomplish was by chance and chance alone. There was nobody to champion. And like, even I know that the scenes people say of like the killing and whatever was really cool to watch or whatever, but like, I didn't find any interest in that.
So I think this movie has a bit of a mistaken identity, or just a lost identity. So it is kind of an action thriller when it should have just been a suspense kind of thriller or horror movie like Jaws. It should have been more scenes of him stalking the lions and realizing that they're stalking him back.
So animal versus man horror movie.
Right. It's kind of more in that vein with the practical special effects that they used would have been a much better movie rather than just kind of like, I'm just going to go out there and shoot a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the things that Reddit was talking about is how this movie spawned a fear in all of them as kids of what would happen if you were sleeping. Like, you know, if you're sleeping alone in camping or sleeping whatever, like, what could happen to you? And I don't know if that did this for me. Like, I get scared of a lot of things, but for me it was just kind of like, this wouldn't happen. They've said a million times that it doesn't happen. So like, I didn't find it scary. Did you find it scary?
I mean, not when I watched it now. I can see if I watched this in 1996 when I was 10 with the practical special effects. Yeah, I could see that they're going, lions are eating people because they used actual lions. Like that's
when I was 10, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience scared me. So
well, that's what I'm saying. Like if I had seen this when I was a kid, yeah, I could totally see that. The movie missed so many opportunities.
Now, you did mention Jaws. Now, yes. A lot of people are comparing this movie to Jaws, saying it's a mirror image. Now, I can't remember Jaws at all. I know that I must have seen it when I was like, 5, 6 years old, whatever age I was. But I cannot remember it. So I don't know. But you did mention it. So do you think that they compare?
So, I mean, there are parts that are very reminiscent of Jaws.
Man versus animal.
Man versus animal is the biggest obvious analogy. There are a couple scenes where the lions, you can see them kind of in the tall grass, and they're kind of lurking beneath the waves or beneath the grass. And so there is that kind of element. I think that this movie does a very good job of using the practical effects, and where Jaws, they made an animatronic shark that was broken, so they couldn't use it until very late in the movie. So you didn't see anything until the movie was almost over. So there was suspense that was built up and built up and built up, which this movie does not really have.
No.
There is a lot of pieces where you don't really see the animal or the lions, and you see a person getting dragged away and all of that, but they're very much a big part of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Now, in Jaws, was there a hero type character, or was it just like this, where it was kind of like just an overinflated ego?
Well, so they actually have a lot of overlap there. So there's the old grizzled shark hunter versus the Remington character in this movie. Mm-hmm. There's the main character hero. There's even the good-natured tag-along person. So there is a lot of similarity there.
I wonder which one came first.
Oh, Jaws.
Oh, Jaws. Okay.
Jaws, definitely.
So you think that they took inspo from Jaws?
I definitely think that they took inspiration from Jaws. Yeah, I just think they didn't do it nearly as well. They could have had that movie, but with lions, and they made it an action movie rather than a suspense horror movie.
Yeah. So what do you think makes this movie a cult classic then? Because it's gotten a lot of attention, and even when I posted it on Twitter, like, we got interaction that we don't normally get, and I was just surprised by this because, one, I've never heard of it, and two, well, I mean, it's bad. So
I think it's the effects, the cinematography, and the sound, like, that carries this movie for a lot of people.
So people just said F the writing, F the acting.
Also, it's nostalgia because it came out when a lot of people were young, and they probably watched it, and they didn't really have that depth of needing a better script. They watched the movie for the lions and the other parts of it, and that's what carries the movie.
And do you think if you had seen this movie when you were 10 that this would have, held with you for a while, like some movies do?
I do think it does. I think it would have, because I wouldn't have necessarily cared about the script or the acting performance. I would have cared about lions are eating people. This is cool.
So basically you're saying this movie is good for anybody below the age of like 10, as long as you want to be scarred for life.
I don't know if it's scarred for life, but just it's a movie that will leave an impact on you if you watch it too young. I can certainly see that.
And if you watch it too old, it will make you wish you never watched it.
Yeah, it falls flat. It does. It admittedly is not.
And it's very slow moving. I know that there's a lot of killing, but like nothing's really, other than like the killing, which yes, that's happening, whatever. But like the story doesn't really move along.
It doesn't have a good pace to it. It's kind of like the lions killed 2 people. Now 30 people are dead. 100 people are dead. Like, it just goes.
And they barely show him building the bridge. Like, they said that it was really important, and they gave us like 4 shots of it. And I'm like, I want to know more about this bridge. Like, I also want to know more about the horrible European imperialism situation that was happening. Like, that kind of stuff was interesting. Like, I'm sad that the lion killed people, but there were other things happening too that I would have liked to know about that you just kind of like told me, then you're just off with it. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's fair. It's kind of that's not what this movie is about, and they're just kind of like, we're gonna say that, and then don't worry about it.
It seemed weird. It just seemed weird. But anyways, so do you have a history minute for this?
Tyler's History Minute.
So I have a few. So I was going to compare the movie to
what actually happened.
So Remington is not a real person. The real story centers around Patterson and takes place over 9 months in 1898. So he gets there in March of 1898, and within a few days, the first lion attack happens. So he's almost kind of plagued with it's his fault, kind of like you showed up and this happened. What you're a jinx, basically.
Yeah.
And it involved him failing for a long time to catch these 2 lions over 9 months. The first lion was shot December 9th of 1898, and the second was finally shot quite a lot of times. It was like 10 or 11 times, and was killed on December 29th, 1898. So in his book, he wrote that it was estimated that the lions killed between the 2 of them 135 to 140 people, which by most modern estimates is huge inflation, probably done to sell his book. The real estimate, which is still higher than 0, which is where you would like it to be, is anywhere from 28 to 39 people between the 2 lions.
Now, it was said that could be because the lions didn't completely eat the entire person, so that they ate partials. They still could have killed more people than...
So there's that. Admittedly, the record keeping by the British was spotty at best, because at this time, they didn't really care about the indigenous people or the Indians that they brought over. So who's to say that it's not a much higher number, because they likely didn't keep track of the locals.
Right.
Let's see. There's quite a few theories as to why this happened. The main 2 are that there was an outbreak of breeding pest, which is cattle plague. So it killed off all of the local wildlife, or a lot of the local lions' source of dinner, and so they had to resort to eating people. The other is the unfortunate reality of the slave trade, which is still going on at this time. And slave traders were crossing this river to get to the port city of Mombasa, and any sick or dying slaves would just be kind of discarded along the path. And there was a lot of shallow or not interred bodies all across the African countryside, and wild animals are not going to just not eat them. So they decided that, hey, this is not bad and kind of easy, so let's do that again. And then the last thing is that in most cases of man-eating behavior by lions, tigers, leopards, it's usually a case of some kind of injury where the big cat is not able to go after the normal food. Either their claws or their jaws or their teeth are causing problems. And they did see on the real lions that were shot and then stuffed that one of them had an infection on one of their canines, which would have made hunting very difficult for the normal prey.
So we're considered easy prey? Is that?
Yeah, we are easier to catch than a zebra.
Yeah, we're slow.
We're slow. We're smaller, and we don't have big teeth. So yeah, that's what happens usually when they're caught and killed. You find out there's a reason for that.
Right. The
real lions were skinned, and then he used them as a rug for a number of years, and then he sold them to the Field Museum in Chicago for $5,000, and they were stuffed, and they're still on display in Chicago.
Road trip.
Yeah, I kind of want to see them because it'd be cool. They're enormous lions by most standards. So the average male lion is only about 8 feet long. That's a very big lion. Both of these lions were over 9 feet long, so they're large.
Yeah, I had a photo of them, but I seem to have lost the photo.
And it took 8 people to carry them back to camp. That's a big animal, probably 400 or 500 pounds.
Yeah. Now, one thing that wasn't mentioned in your stuff or our stuff was the supernatural, or I guess demonic element of this. I don't know which way you want to look at that, but so it seems like they as in Patterson and everybody that was there thought that this was either a like Satan come to life in lion form or some other curse that was happening to them, and they kind of said that for a few reasons, one of which being that Patterson every time like he tried to kill them, something went wrong, right? So the cage, they trapped him in the cage and then they couldn't shoot him, and then there's another time that in the movie, I don't know if this happened in real life, but in the movie Patterson went to shoot him and then the gun didn't actually go off, it misfired. There are a few other things too, right, where there was just so many problems.
The seemingly supernatural ability for the lions to get through the thorn fencing, the
right,
Beaumont, which having no mane would help for that, but like most animals will not go through that to get dinner, because African thorn bushes, they don't mess around. They're like 2 inches long and
painful,
needle point sharp. Like it's terrible.
Now, did you find at all in your research for real versus movie if that part was true and where that may have come from? Because it felt like such a weird thing for me. Like I wouldn't assume a lion is eating people, so it must be cursed and Satan.
So there is an element of the supernatural in the real story where they were confounded and the lions were always 2 steps ahead, where they did move the hospital and the lions decided to go after the hospital, carry off one of the water carriers. So there is an element to that where the superstitious people would ascribe a not biological underlying force to the lions.
I found it, I guess, a jarring part of the movie because first of all, they kept calling them the ghosts in the darkness rather than lions, which I couldn't even get through my head that they were talking about the lions when they said that. Like it was jarring to me, didn't make a lot of sense, and they really didn't give a lot of explanation as to like where that came from, other than just that that's what they thought. Like, oh, it's weird, so we think it's Satan.
So
I'm assuming there's some kind of religious thing, or
it's a spiritual thing. I think in the stories of man-eating behavior that I've read in the past, which I've read a few stories, there is generally from the local population some kind of spiritual connection to the animal. So tigers are a big part of Indian culture because they're there. Mm-hmm. Same thing for lions, leopards, etc. So I think it's easy to understand that there's an outside of the normal behavior kind of understanding that something else is going on here that's not supposed to be happening.
Okay, well, it was something that took me out a little bit, but maybe it's just something that I'm not familiar with. Okay, so we do have audience asks.
Audience asks.
If you're ready.
Okay.
So I'll start with the contrarians. They said, did you feel you were robbed of the impact of not seeing what happened to Michael Douglas?
I was just happy that he was gone finally. I mean, he could have died so much sooner and it would have been a much better movie.
You know, as we watched this movie 3 days ago, and truthfully, I don't remember him. Like, I know he died. I remember that, but like, I don't remember
a bloody tent. Like, that's it.
So they barely talked about it then. Like, it was just like, oh, he's dead, and they moved on.
Yeah. I think the director was probably happy to be rid of Michael Douglas, and it's like, screw it. It's already in. We're done. Moving on.
I wonder if Michael Douglas like didn't want that, but that was like the compromise of like, if you want to stay in the damn movie, you die. So for me, no, I don't feel like we were robbed because I literally didn't care. I just didn't want to see him anymore.
I wish he had died before he got into the movie.
They're just like talking about the folklore of like this Remington man who tried and failed.
And he just like was a guy that they found out in the woods, eaten by lions.
He found his skull in that cave.
Yeah, that would have been so much better. So much better.
We're terrible people. Gidget Von LaRue just said, how similar is this film compared to the true life story? So we did that. Refer you to our history minute for that, I guess.
I mean, there's quite a lot of similarity. They did take quite a bit of license to this, where he had to move the bridge in the real story because it was not a good spot.
And I mean, they created a whole ass character.
They created an amalgamated nightmare character.
But there is also a lot that sticks really true to it. So, I mean, they do quite a good job. I mean, like 8 out of 10 for sticking to the story is what I mean. Not for the score of the movie.
No.
Yeah. Dissect That Film says, why is this film so underrated?
I think it's underrated because it really falls flat with the acting. The accents were terrible. So bad.
I didn't know he was Irish. You kept saying it, and I'm like, what do you mean? He's not Irish.
They said it at the beginning of the movie, and then his just so bad. Just ungodly bad.
And if Michael Douglas was supposed to be from the South, you wouldn't have known it.
No, like it was just everything was bad for that. So the acting, the scripts, and the final cut of the movie, which felt kind of disjointed in the mess, is what holds it back. If they'd gone,
so the movie is what holds the movie back.
So if they had cut out Remington entirely and had a more even paced movie, it would have been a much better, much more highly regarded movie, in my opinion.
Now, is this a movie that you would put as a candidate for a remake?
I would like to see them remake this. I would like to still have them use live action lions for the movie. But yeah, I would be interested to have a new adaptation of this.
Do you have a director in mind?
I don't know if I do have a choice. I mean, my ideal candidate would be like Alfred Hitchcock to have the suspense just be.
I don't think you can revive him.
No, I mean, that would be such a good movie. Are you kidding? Like, we saw what he did with birds. Imagine what he has to do with lions that eat people.
That's fair. I was thinking Jordan Peele, just because, you know, the whole thriller aspect and like they're really getting in your head. I feel like for me that would make it more interesting.
I can see that. I mean, that's a good choice. I want it to be a more suspense movie rather than tra la la la. We're gonna shoot a lot of animals.
Bigger man, that's what you're supposed to want.
It was just so.
No. And then the last thing was from Avi Zalmanbrand. And he said, should the script have added in a supernatural element, however subtly?
I think they did.
I think he might be questioning whether or not that should have been there.
I mean, I honestly didn't have a problem with that because it's just so far out of normal animal behavior that a brief touch on the supernatural and something's not quite right is not out of place.
Now, how would you have felt if they had added in like seances or like other things that sometimes are added into movies like this that talk about satanic behavior and things like that?
See, that would have been a little bit too far. I think that would have been just kind of, all right, we get it. Yeah. Move on, please.
What about like 666 or other signs of the devil?
That again is a little bit, it kind of cheapens the true story. It kind of.
So you're happy with the level that they...
Yes, I think they struck a good balance with that aspect of the movie, and few other aspects of the movie.
Okay, so that's what we have, right? I mean, again, this is a shorter podcast because we hated this movie. Well, I hated it. He just is lukewarm on it.
Yeah, I mean, lukewarm at best.
So, do you want to give your rating?
Reviews.
Well, so Rotten Tomatoes has it at 50 for the critic score. Audience score is higher at 75.
That's because it's a cult classic.
Yeah, it is kind of a cult classic. Some people are watching it because the acting is so bad that it's kind of like, yep, that's what I remember.
It's not even one of those movies that's so bad it's funny. It's not.
No.
It takes itself very seriously.
Takes itself way too seriously.
Yeah.
So do you want to go first?
Yeah, you can go.
All right, I'm going to give it a 6.
That's a nice score. 6
out of 10. Yeah. And I mean, the cinematography, the special effects, the soundtrack, all on point. It's the story is a muddled mess. It kind of loses itself. The acting is just atrocious, and Michael Douglas needs to be removed from this movie. Like, digitally remaster this movie and remove his character from the entire movie. And just, and the accents were terrible. So, 6 out of 10.
So did you know that Roger Ebert put this as one of his most hated movies of 1996?
I did not know that.
He did. He hated this movie as well. And so on his list of his most hated movies of 1996, there is a few movies that we have seen and probably like. And there's also a movie on his favorites that we've seen and did not like.
Okay.
So starting with his least favorite, there is a Adam Sandler movie on this list, and I'm curious if you can guess.
So I can just go run down the list.
1996.
I don't know what years.
And it's one of the most popular.
Happy Gilmore.
Yes. And then there's also a Jim Carrey movie on this list that is very 90s. And
Ace Ventura.
No. It is not from a franchise type thing.
Liar Liar?
Nope. Earlier, I think.
Cable Guy?
Yes. Do you think that they belong with this movie on the list?
I mean, I'm gonna probably get some hate for this, but I don't care for the Cable Guy.
What?
I don't. Nope.
Okay, so audience, should we make him watch that movie for the podcast to basically put him through torture? Like, I vote yes, but I'm just curious what you guys vote. So let us know. As for Happy Gilmore, are you gonna say you didn't like Happy Gilmore?
Oh no, Happy Gilmore is a delightful.
I was about to file for divorce.
Oh no, it's a classic movie from my childhood.
Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to ask you is, can you guess what podcast movie is on his favorites of 1996 that we were less than happy about, mostly because of who directed it and also was in it?
Directed and in it. I have no idea. Who is in it? Give me a chance. Give me a shot.
Allen.
Woody Allen. Oh, P.S. I love you. No, not P.S. I love you. Everyone says I love you.
Yes.
Everyone says I love
Not
you.
P.S. I love you.
Not
Gerard Butler, we love you.
Everyone says I love you.
Yes. So other movies on his list are
God,
like Fargo, which surprising to me, but none of the others I even know. I mean, Hamlet, but I don't think I've seen it. But the rest I haven't seen. Breaking the Waves, Secret and Lies, Lone Star, Welcome to the Dollhouse. I don't know what any of those are, but these are his favorites of 1996.
Everyone says I love you. No.
I mean, granted, in 1996...
You lose your movie critic score ability for liking that movie.
Yeah, so if you guys want to listen to our episode on that, we really talk about the Dancing Ghosts.
The Dancing Ghost musical nightmare that is that movie.
Yes. But
also, Woody Allen has no business anywhere near Julia Roberts.
I don't think that it was all out in the open in 1996. I don't think so.
Well, regardless of that being in the open, they're not in the same.
No. Oh,
they're not in the same ballpark. Like, come on.
No.
Like, even if he wasn't a miserable person, no. In 1996, the answer is no.
Oh, tell me how you really feel.
That's just no.
No. But okay, so for my rating, I was going to give it a 3. So,
oof.
Yeah. So I was bored. I didn't care about anyone. I wasn't scared of the lions at all. It just didn't do anything for me. I was interested in the true story. I really enjoyed the video that I watched way more than I enjoyed the movie. I kept thinking to myself, now, if this was the movie, just these short clips that they were giving in the video that we watched, I would have been like, oh yeah, this is great. I loved that. But the movie itself, I was bored. I was looking for an exit the whole time. The acting was terrible. Just, no, sorry. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I just did not like this movie. So I'm sorry. But that is everything I have. So Next week's movie is something that has been recommended since the inception of the podcast, really?
Yeah, it's been on the list for, 5 years now?
Yes. So we are doing The Burbs. I've never seen it. Have you seen it?
I don't think I have, actually.
So you guys have been tweeting it at us forever, and I feel like it's about time. I know nothing. I haven't even watched a trailer. I know nothing about this. I've seen a GIF, and we got the DVD at a thrift store. So that's what I'm going in with. That's what I know. Do you know anything about it?
No.
So fun. It's going to be a great time. So that is everything I have. Thank you to Jake Adathis Music for our intro and outro music, and we will be back next week with The Burbs.
Thank you all for listening.